right there. This is Vladimir, and I continue recording my videos where I walk and talk. It's like walking and talking. And so today is the third day after I started recording these videos, and I already realized the power which this technique or this exercise gives me. I mean, it's difficult to explain, but I'll try, because basically what I'm doing, like, I'm trying to focus on my thoughts. I'm trying to focus on studying English, like practical way of studying, just talking, developing your speech, developing your, why do I say your instead of my? Okay, developing my speech, developing my ability to communicate. And so it's really difficult to see how it influences my behavior and how it influences my thoughts. And it's really difficult to explain because, for example, when I start thinking about it, like yesterday I was thinking about this exercise for an hour while I was writing. I just put my thoughts in order and I recorded, like, I wrote the whole page when I tried to convince myself that it's really amazing exercise and that I should continue to practice it. And then after that I was thinking for like 2 or 3 hours before falling asleep. I turned off the lights and was lying and thinking, and basically I was thinking about this exercise. And the idea which I discovered pretty quickly was that I can do this exercise to overcome my fear of public speaking. But it's not just, the fear, because I definitely have a little fear of public speaking. It's not really strong, but still I have some sort of anxiety. So when I need to talk in public, like even in my speaking club, every week, every Sunday, I need to talk to people, and depending on how I feel, like, the whole conversation turns out good or bad. So if I just feel bad, and if I can't manage this little anxiety, which sometimes really can distract my mood, my thoughts, it doesn't work as I want it to work. But when I feel good, it's like it brings lots of positive emotions, and I really like it. And what I think is that if I practice more, like to talk in public, it gives me like kind of strength and power. And that's why I said that it can give me lots of power, like this exercise, after just practicing a few days. I realized that I can just go everywhere and talk to myself, like, everywhere, not just in the forest. The point is, I can go like in very crowded places where there's lots of people, and I can continue to talk to myself like that, just holding the camera in front of me and just continue talking. First of all, it's like one important thing to understand is that when people, for example, look at me, they can't like a kind of idea which I project on them, and they're thinking that they will judge me, or they will, like, think that I'm crazy, because it's a kind of unnatural. So you don't see you see sometimes people who are going with their cell phones and they record themselves and they talk to themselves, but it's like it's really rare. And but I think in future, like in 5 years or in 10 years, lots of people will do that, because I don't know, for me it's like a powerful technique. Again, I can just practice my public speaking, I can overcome this fear, and I can like gain more and more power, be more and more authentic just while I'm talking to people. And again, when I think about their beliefs, or not their beliefs, but their attitude toward what I'm doing, there's always a kind of, you know, kind of thought which I project on them, and this thought makes me a little bit anxious, because I think, oh, okay, they'll probably say in their mind something like, oh, it looks crazy, like this guy is walking and talking to himself on camera in English, and they probably don't understand that I'm talking English, because, you know, my English doesn't sound like like real English, and lots of people just don't know English. Like, I mean, in this town, how many people can recognize English when they hear it? I don't think that a lot, maybe 20%, maybe 30%, but still, it's like, it's very little. And the point is that when I think about them, when I think, oh, okay, probably they will judge me, or probably they will, it's like, I don't think it on a conscious level. I'm not just moving and thinking, oh, they will criticize me, that I'm going in the street, like I'm talking to myself. It's not like that. It's like unconscious anxiety and fear of being, you know, of being unusual. Exactly, because it's really unusual when you do something like this on public, like when you go in the street when there's lots of people and you record yourself and you talk out loud. It's really unusual, and this fear of being unusual, it's actually, this fear projects my personal, or, you know, it projects itself on other people, and it's kind of, I'm looking at myself from eyes of other people, through eyes of other people, and I immediately see something that I don't like, and I start thinking, oh, probably it's bad, probably I need to, you know, to stop doing that. But on the other hand, if I just think about it a little bit logically, like, let's suppose that I am walking in the street and I see a guy who is just walking and talking to himself, recording himself on a camera. What I actually would think about him? I guess I don't pay attention. I mean, I can say, oh, that's interesting, man just walks and talks. Or I can say, oh, he's, like, I would not say that he's crazy. And I probably would not, you know, have some kind of negative attitude towards that man. I think I just don't give a fuck. I just go to my own way, to, you know, go my way and forget about this man or woman. If it happens to be a woman, I forget about them, him or her, after just a few minutes. And this thing, this kind of attitude and so belief maybe, or logical reasoning, it's actually really important, because now it's like when I realize that I can practice this self-talk, it distracts me a lot. So if I want to talk, if I want to be authentic, if I want to, you know, to get something from these videos, just to see how I can talk, where I can go and talk, how different places affect my speech, my thoughts. I mean, if I want to really get something of this exercise, I should develop a kind of attitude, like some sort of independence, and so I shouldn't worry about like what's going on around me. I must focus on my thoughts, like, completely, and be not distracted by any outer circumstances. No matter what's going on, if there's people going around and looking, I shouldn't pay attention at all, and or at least I can learn not to pay attention. And also everything else, like, no matter what's going on, I'm just trying to be as authentic as possible. And again, I think it's difficult. I think it doesn't happen in a moment. I need to practice it for like maybe weeks, maybe months, maybe years. I'm not sure exactly how much time it takes to overcome this fear. Maybe I'll never be able to overcome it. Maybe I always will, you know, walk, and since there's some people, it immediately distracts my, you know, my speech. Now I feel like I had lots of themes which I prepared for today's conversation. It was with myself. Today's video, there was different ways of thinking. There was self-learning language. I was going to talk about language. It's like lots of stuff. But since I started talking to myself, I immediately discovered that I can't focus on these things. That I need to like focus my attention exactly on this, you know, on this. I can't call it fear, on this anxiety. So and just convince myself don't think too much about that, about, you know, other people. But again, it doesn't work perfectly because now I'm not feel bad, but the point is that my body sweats and usually doesn't sweat in just when I just walk. But now I feel a little bit, you know. It's not like I'm not. It doesn't sweat too hard, but it's still, it's sweat. Yeah, and especially now when I'm going to the place when there's lots of people. It's like this place, and I must talk. And there's just 10 minutes. I started talking 10 minutes ago. Yeah, and I'm going to the forest, and so while going now, I need to really focus on an idea instead of talking about people, because really it distracts me a lot when I focus on people, and I can't talk about anything else but people. But if I take an idea and start talking about some idea, like what's really bothers me, why like I'm doing this exercise, what like advantages it can bring to my speaking practice. If I focus on idea, I'll give like really much more benefits from that exercise instead of if I just focus on some circumstances. It's kind of psychological training. So when I, for example, walk and talk, right, there's a certain way in which I just structure my experience, and now this outer experience affects me much more than, for example, this inner experience. And if I focus on inner experience, it will be much like better, because since I can focus on what I think, I can just completely forget what I see and what I feel. And that's the point, because so I need just to keep talking and focus on my inner thoughts instead of just being overwhelmed by what other people think, how they react, how they perceive me. Like, a truly powerful technique. I can just continue doing that for like a month or a few months, and then after that I probably will be able to do it perfectly. I mean, to go everywhere and just talk like just talk like mad, develop my language. That's the point. So I can just be really authentic and public. And well, let's focus on what? On memory? No, there's also a technique about self-learning. So when you think about self-learning, for example, when you study language, right, there's a really powerful technique, which is not studying language per se, but studying yourself. You just take language as a kind of, as a tool, and then you discover like who you are, let's say, and what are you doing in life, and what's your basic motivations, what motivates you to do stuff. And since you start doing that, it's like, first of all, you don't need to remember everything you study. You don't need to remember words, you don't need to remember certain sentences. You need just to focus on your like real desires and your motivation, desires. All this just describe one thing. And this thing basically is what you are doing, and you can think about it every day. Like, you can start every day from a question: what's going on right now, what I'm thinking about. And since you start from this question, you can just continue developing this idea, and the next day you can start doing the same. So just developing the same idea. I just met an acquaintance and he just is afraid. Hi, how are you doing? I'm recording a video.
Yes.
Can you say something in English?
Я живу в Калуге.
No. I'm doing it in English.
My English is very bad. Я могу только акцент сделать какой-нибудь.
Okay.
Ну, спроси меня что-нибудь.
How are you doing? Where you go?
I go to home.
To home? Oh, okay. See? From where?
I'm working now and I go to home.
Are you listening to music?
Yes.
What kind of music?
Lumen.
Really?
Lumen.
It's what style?
Sid and Nancy, rock.
Rock.
Russian rock.
Russian rock. Oh, okay.
Punk rock.
Do you like it?
Yes.
See, you can just understand me.
Да, я тебя понимаю прекрасно.
How to say it in English?
I am understanding.
Yeah, I understand you. Yeah, well, I get you. Come to speak in class, practice your English every week on Sunday.
Когда я найду свободное время.
Oh, it probably will never happen. Okay, so I'll go
Куда идешь?
in the forest.
В лес.
Yeah, I just go and record the video, kind of practice to... Окей, переключусь на русский. Побороть страх публичных выступлений. То есть, например, я веду этот клуб, да, и мне иногда бывает сложно сфокусироваться именно на том, что я хочу сказать, потому что здесь много людей вокруг, мне трудно как бы сфокусироваться на своих мыслях, я фокусируюсь на том, как люди меня воспринимают, что они думают о том, что я говорю. И это очень отвлекает. И как бы вот эта практика, то, что я записываю себя именно пока я иду по дороге, да, как бы немного странно со стороны выглядит. И я пытаюсь как бы побороть вот этот страх, чтобы говорить о том, что меня беспокоит, о каких-то естественных вещах. То есть, чтобы не фокусироваться на людях, как бы полностью отключиться от восприятия происходящего и воспринимать только поток моих мыслей на английском, и фокусироваться на развитии этого потока.
Я понял.
Вместо того, чтобы фокусироваться, там, не знаю, ну, как бы идти на автомате, да, как автопилот. То есть, как бы, все остальное полностью погрузиться в мышление.
Ну я понял, но я хотел сказать, что вот эти вот ощущения, когда ты на публике находишься, это же защитная реакция, естественно.
Да.
Все естественно,
Да, но
можно принять.
Да, но с ней можно работать, как бы. Да, не просто
направлять.
Да, ее можно направить как гнев или как агрессия. Да, ты начинаешь чувствовать себя, как бы, ну, перестаешь контролировать себя, когда ты агрессивен. И это приводит, как правило, к неприятным последствиям. Да, а если ты можешь контролировать агрессию, да, то есть это сразу становится...
По-другому, конечно.
Да. То, что ты занимаешься боевым искусством, да, в принципе, не занимаешься не для того, чтобы там, ходить и бить себя каждый раз. Но тем не менее, дает тебе чувство уверенности. Да, и постепенно потом, когда уже негативная ситуация возникает, ты уже знаешь, как себя вести. То же самое здесь, то есть как бы практика, постоянно контролировать свои мысли и не давать себе отвлекаться на посторонние вещи. Ладно, я погнал.
Good luck.
Да. See you next time. That was funny. Really. Last time. 18 minutes. Yeah, I was talking with him just a few minutes, but it was really amazing. I mean, yesterday it was also one of my, like I had the thought about like what would I do if I meet an acquaintance in the city, for example. And I was thinking, wow, it will look crazy, and probably I need to shift to Russian language, because like if somebody asks me like what are you doing, it will be very difficult to explain. It's like it will be impossible to explain in English. But in Russian, yeah, it took me just a few minutes to clarify a little bit what I'm doing, because I can clarify it to the like. I know that I'm doing it like there's lots of reasons, but I wouldn't say that I understand all reasons which are involved in this process. So somehow I discovered that it's a good, technique which can help me to improve my English, and which can help me to improve myself, to become stronger and to become more emotionally stronger, not just physically but emotionally. And when I realized that, I decided, why not try? So now I'm trying it, and I see that it's really amazing. I mean, just after 3 days of practicing this technique, I already see its results. I already like to think about it a lot. I mean, for me, it's like when I find something interesting to think about, it makes me like really a different person. So it makes me like, you feel really good, and it's like it's almost impossible to describe how you feel. And and as I was talking to this man, like it exactly is the way to overcome my anxiety and to use this extra energy which I get from like while other people can observe me, to use this extra energy for a kind of in a way which can help me to improve my thinking and my English. So because I can just be anxious and tell some sort of bullshit, or I can direct that energy. I can take it and say, wow, it's like it can motivate me a lot. I mean, just I can focus on what I'm talking, and I can develop really important thoughts which can be useful for not only for my life. I mean, of course, if I just focus on speaking club right now and start talking about speaking club and what can I do to improve speaking club, or if I focus on English, for example, and start talking about English, like what can I do to improve my English, and or just describe some reasons, or trying to find something interesting what I can use for for talking about it, for recording a video. It just all of this is like it can be done much better than I'm doing it right now, and it can be turned into some sort of really valuable content. Because now it's not valuable, I'm doing it for myself, I'm doing chiefly because I like to do that, I like to see where it can lead me. But after like practicing it for a while, I don't know how much time it takes, maybe a year, maybe just a few months. The point is, after practicing for a while, I can make a content really, like I can go everywhere in my city, or I can even move to different cities, and I can go everywhere and just record myself in different places and talk about stuff which I like to be myself. The same, like you go and you just think, but when you think, when you don't record yourself, it doesn't work in the same way as when you just record yourself and think out loud, because your thoughts become different from what they usually are as soon as you start observing them. And verbalizing your thoughts is the same as observing them. You just start verbalizing them and they go in a different path. Okay, what's time? 22. There was one important thing which I discovered yesterday, and now I just don't do that, because I mean it was a kind of I don't have a proper word. It's like a set, but it wasn't a set. It was a goal or task which I decided to follow. But for me today it's still difficult to focus my attention, because it's like again it's unusual exercise. I usually don't do that, and now I'm just trying to think like about everything that can help me to improve this exercise. And this thing was just to keep my arm on a distance from my face, because yesterday while I was watching what I recorded, most of the time there was just my beard and nothing else, and it's not good to look all the time on my beard. I mean, I like to look at my face when I'm talking, or just on some places, but when it's like this, it doesn't work. So I need to keep my arm a little bit from my body, and if my arm is exhausted, I can use another arm and I can look like from different angle, and that's also okay. I mean, but the point is, don't forget about keeping the camera at a sufficient distance, and also another thing is to look sometimes in the camera. So not all the time I need to look like straight forward, because sometimes it's really good to look at the camera and just try to focus attention, and it makes it a little bit more natural. When I watch a video, like I discovered a man who was doing the same thing like this, walking and talking. It was called exactly like walking and talking on YouTube. I discovered him maybe a month ago, and I was really amazed by what he was doing. But when I started listening what he was talking, it was really really hard. So I couldn't listen more than just 15 minutes. And I listened to a few videos, and he is like a slow man. He tries to put his speech in a really like kind of logical or grammatical way. I mean, he may just walk for 10 seconds without saying anything, and then he can say just one sentence or just few words, and then think about next few words for another like 10 seconds. And in general, for like during 1 minute, he may say just few sentences, and it's really it's really annoying just to listen to. But of course, I wouldn't say that the content of his speech was like, he was talking about something like identity, self-identity, and the way how he perceives himself, and how it changes his identity when he just walks and talks, and when he also think about this, like his audience. By the way, he has like 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, and so he was basically talking like something about different ways of lifestyle, and one of the things was like he lives like me approximately. I mean, his lifestyle is very similar to my own. He doesn't need a lot of money. He can basically survive with pretty little amount of money, and he also focused on some kind of creative work. And the first videos which he published on YouTube was like really exclusive content. I mean, you can't find anything like that on YouTube. It was sitting and smiling. So he was sitting for hours and smiling, not doing anything, not talking about anything, just sitting and smiling like that. 4 hours without moving his body. It's kind of meditation. I guess he worked on it for many years, because to achieve that state, when you are able to sit 4 hours without moving your body and smile and keep smiling, it's like, well, I think it takes maybe 10 years, maybe even more, because I tried to do that, and maybe I did like 5 minutes, and after that my jaw was like, it was really hard. But then I realized that if I can just improve, like if I can add 1 minute a day, and practicing for 10 years or 5 years, actually not too much, like 1 minute a day, but the point is that you can't be sure that you can add every day 1 minute, and sometimes you need to miss a day, then another day. There can be many distractions, and but still it's possible to achieve this state of 4 hours sitting and smiling, but it's really hard. So when I discovered this man, like I was thinking, wow, that's amazing. Like what he's doing is like, it's really strong, and he probably must talk about something meaningful, because at that time when I discovered him, he already recorded maybe 20 or 30. I'm not sure exactly how many, but the point was that there was lots of videos recorded on like walking and talking, and he does exactly the same. He just he walks and talks for 4 hours, the same amount of time as he was sitting. And and I realized, wow, it's like it had a great impact on my imagination and my thinking at that moment when I discovered him. But I haven't tried to do it on my own. I haven't tried to start talking and recording the same exercise, because what I'm doing, I'm just record myself standing in front of the camera at home and just changing perspective. It's like really leaving your comfort zone and starting doing something new. But like few days ago, I was walking in the forest, and I had a camera, and I just said, what? It's like, it's pretty boring just to go through the forest and think, and let's try to record myself. And then I recorded myself, and I watched it, and I said, wow, that's really amazing. New thoughts, new ways of thinking. Oh, just few seconds. Okay.